They call me Et, sometimes Set, but mostly just Rocks. And you're listening to Ceterox, where I talk about anything and everything till we reach the end of our thinking capacity. So how's that for an intro, ladies and gentlemen, and people who prefer not to use pronouns? Hello. I'm using a new microphone. Finally! Is this better than the previous one? We have yet to find out, but we are recording a brand new episode. You're currently listening to Trending Tuesdays by Ceterox, where we talk about keeping up with the times as someone who lives under a rock and prefer to jump between history and the future, thus forgetting to live in the moment. So this is where we cover memes, headlines, and other events in the world. Cool. I suddenly just blacked out. Because I've been testing this microphone yesterday when it arrived, and I was pretty terrified whether the expectations of quality that I'm currently hearing at the moment might not deliver the same, as the final output. But I'm just, hoping for the best, as we always do. Now, onto the main topic. I kind of came up with this on a whim, since I was wondering what is there to talk about trends today, but I figured we should get the elephant in the room. We should get it. We should address it. And we are talking about the C word. Yes, the C word. That's going to be the title of this episode, and pretty much just so we're on theme, I kind of arranged my talking points according to different words that start with letter C. I don't know how that's going to be like, but let's get to it. The C word. The COVID-19 pandemic, aka coronavirus. Yes. What an awesome way to put it. We are all, wherever you are in the world. Like I said, I live under a rock, so I have no idea just how horrible the COVID-19 pandemic is. And if there are countries that are not yet affected, I am super duper happy for you, and I hope it stays that way, because this is just horrible. Let's not compare it to the past and what we might experience in the future. Let's just focus on today, and today we're all experiencing a really horrible thing. This coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic is horrible. Okay, for starters, I say the C word because personally, I really don't like to say COVID-19 or coronavirus. I just prefer to call it the pandemic, the times, today, the present, what we got going on. And I don't know, I guess that's just my coping mechanism. Another C word. That's the way I deal with it, so I don't have to, I don't have to face reality that, we're everybody's getting sick. Everybody's at risk, of this horrible virus, and we don't. I don't think anybody wants to deal with this anymore. I don't know what people are thinking, but I think it's safe to say that the majority of the world population agrees. I hope that nobody wants to be in a pandemic disrupting our, daily life. What it holds, if there's a future for the world. I am looking at some stats of the COVID-19 world map, which countries have the most coronavirus cases and deaths. It's kind of horrible, It says here that there's already 29,071,961 total cases, according to the latest global data. and there has been 922,441 deaths, and that is just crazy. They have like this whole map here, showing of which countries have like growth numbers of cases and like a shrinking number of cases, which sounds good, I guess, because we want cases to shrink, right? And it kind of sucks because I can see the country where I'm from on somewhere near the top of the list. I mean, it's not as close as the top three, which says here India, United States, and Brazil are the top three with the most total cases in the world. But my country is still on the list. Let me just like give a quick count because I'm horrible at math. We are on the top 14. We are the 14th on this list. And since I haven't really explicitly said where I'm from, I'm actually from the Philippines. Hey, Pinoy pride. I don't really think this is something to be proud of. Being on the top 14 of highest total cases in the world. This is very disturbing. But okay, let's get into it. What is currently happening? We're in a catastrophe. I mean, some would even agree that we're in an apocalypse, and it's a little bit ironic since in our previous episode I talked about zombies and that dystopic future, and today doesn't really feel that far from that reality because there's a virus outbreak. People are on lockdown to stay safe so they don't catch the virus, and which in this case is that C word. That's our form of zombie strain. Although people who catch the virus miraculously recover, but those of them that are affected by it, they pass away. They don't turn into zombies. So, yeah, I'm not gonna make any more jokes about that because it's not that cool at all. And I just want to like put it out there that that's what's currently going on in the world. Is that the only thing that we're going to be talking about today? Perhaps. I guess. Because I guess it's better to just address it, right away than to just, keep on avoiding that fact. Let's all live in our little fantasy world. But I don't really think that's the way to go. I don't think anybody will grow or learn anything from just avoiding the current situation. And while I do say I live under a rock, I do believe in the importance of being informed. But as a daydreamer, I'm completely guilty of just avoiding the facts. Well, not avoiding the facts. It's just, I guess, avoiding like the sad reality. Because I mean, life is already horrible as it is. So I just tend to make the most of what I've got and just, make it as positive and as happy as I can. Like, for, just to make life a little easier and to make, the day go by a little better. I don't want to make this episode to be like a breaking news where I just read headlines all around the world. I am on CNN.com. Now, I consider it to be a trustworthy news provider. But if there's any other place, I mean, we can also consider other websites as our, point of reference. But I guess CNN gives out a lot of reliable, in my opinion, okay, because there are some listeners who may disagree with me, but yeah, this is just where we're gonna get our topics from. So I'm gonna focus mainly on CNN International and CNN Philippines, just to see what's like, what is going on, man. Like, yikes. Okay. I kind of pause a little bit in between, not because I have nothing much to say. It's just that it's a little bit hard for me to process because this is something that I avoid leaving, which is another C word for me, the comfort zone. I value my comfort zone a little bit too much. And I'm gonna get a little bit into that later on how being in the comfort zone is like for me. But let's just read a few headlines here and see what we can nitpick. Huh. People are angry about the pandemic. There is there are anti-COVID awards for airports. There isn't apparently the election is coming soon. If I don't know, since I'm seeing campaigns, so that can only mean that it's gonna be election year, or if it isn't already election year. I kind of like apologize to people in advance if I seem so uneducated or ignorant with the current happenings, but I kind of filter out the type of information that I want to have in my life. Not because I don't care, but because sometimes I tend to care a little bit too much, and I don't want to like suffer mentally because if I'm not gonna take action on my concern, I'm just gonna wallow in anxiety. Just worrying about everything. Like, since there's nothing I can do about it, I'll just be in like a panic. Crazy. I'm reading headlines from CNN Philippines on what's going on, and it's a lot of COVID-19 pandemic related content. Surprise, surprise. But we're actually currently on GCQ, which is known as General Community Quarantine. Now, I live in the metropolitan area, so I there are different states of like quarantine and lockdown depending on where you're from. Some provincial areas are actually still on enhanced community quarantine or modified enhanced community quarantine, which they have different things. So we call it ECQ, MECQ, and GCQ. The ECQ being as close to what a lockdown means, so absolutely no going outside unless you're a frontliner. Just stay at home as much as possible. Whereas MECQ and GCQ are a little bit lighter, which allows people to be a little bit more mobile, but they still strongly discourage like going outside and traveling. So it's been like months or since March since I've last seen people that I know from work, from my family. And do we jump in? Do we jump into, that whole lockdown thing? I'm just gonna like read a little bit more on like the top stories, and people are talking about vaccines and the availability of, vaccines for the virus and how it's gonna be like. But the problem is excuse me, apparently there's an issue in the country where there is a lack of mass testing. Now, considering Philippines, based on what I know, okay, don't take my word for this. Don't quote me on this. We're a third world country. We're pretty poor. We're in a lot of debt. And being in a pandemic like this one, it can be a little bit difficult to help everybody because, for starters, not everybody can afford help. So a lot of the poor people are relying on the government for aid, to make sure that they're safe and all that. So there's a huge economic gap between the rich and the poor here. And I'm fortunate enough to be in the middle class. Just, we're in a state where we're not in like high profiles or anything, but we're not on the strongly impoverished side of things. I mean, for crying out loud, I am recording a podcast that just screams privilege right there. I'm sure like there's a lot of Filipinos who want to use their voices to to like support a cause that supports health and safety, and none of them will have like any platform to just express themselves. So okay, I'm talking about social issues right now, but you see the point, so everybody is just like on the internet, and not everyone has access to the internet. So most of the people who are able to express their voices through like social media or trending hashtags, that's their only way to like speak up on their opinions or their take on whatever is going on in the country. I use well, I do pay attention to some of these hashtags, and I try to read up and to see different perspectives, but sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming just because, well, people are speaking out on their opinion because free speech and all that. But sometimes, what is relevant, what is irrelevant, what is just plain trolling, what is just an act of extremism. Okay, I'm butchering that pronunciation, but like, how are we heard by the government that we elected to take care of the country, right? I'm sure the news is covering all these social media protests, since we're encouraging social distancing. We don't want people to be protesting in public. But does our government listen? Does democracy end after the elections? That after the Filipino people voted for who they want to sit on the government, is that it? Do we leave the rest to them? Does our voice still matter after that vote? There's a lot of there's a lot of factors like that I'm not sure, I'm not well aware or educated enough on maybe talking about. So those are just some of the things that I'm wondering, and it's a little bit sad because this is just my opinion, okay, but I don't know. I just think that we're not handling this whole situation. We're kind of handling it poorly. Does that make any sense? Like, the people are complaining about the leaders, how they're being negligent, or why are they focusing on other things instead of prioritizing lowering the cases. Or maybe they are, but what people are paying attention to are like the side projects, and then they're talking about the trillions of pesos in debt, and like how they think we're selling out our countries to our neighbors. I mean, okay, I am horribly misinformed on what is going on in the country, but based on like past conversations I've had with people that I know personally, and social media, everybody's just so against the current administration on how they're dealing with this whole thing. Now, what do I think of this as like a citizen? I mean, I do my part, and I participate in the whole quarantine, and just so encouraging everybody to like social distance and avoid non-essential traveling, and anything that can put your health and safety at risk. But like, I don't know what else is there to do to help improve the situation, apart from like needing lots and lots of money to get tested, to buy supplements and essentials to survive, to avoid getting sick. And it's kind of sad because it sounds very anti-poor. It's like it kind of puts the people on the lower side of things at a disadvantage, because they don't have the same resources as we do. They don't have the same opportunities as we do. Unemployment, for starters, is crazy. I am grateful that I have a stable job, and I have every day, I have a daily grind that I'm dealing with. And there are people who probably work harder, better than I do, but a lot of them have been laid off just because the company needs to save costs. So a lot of Filipinos are resorting to begging, to online businesses, or some of them are just looking for ways to get by. And it's really sad because there's only so much an organization, there's only so much a few good people out there can do to provide charity, to provide help. Now, does this episode seem controversial to you? Am I saying something wrong? I don't know, am I saying this the wrong way? It's a little bit, this is not a topic for starters that I'm comfortable in talking about in the first place, because it's very sad for me. And I guess it's privilege in the sense that I can just choose to ignore this and just go on with my life, while there are people who are experiencing this on a daily basis, and I don't want to be ignorant to that fact, which is why I really want to understand. I want to know, what can I do to be a voice, to give voice to those who don't have a voice? What can I do to help those who need help? Or what can I do as like a citizen, just so I can, use your votes wisely? Apart from that, how, I just have a lot of these questions, and maybe after this, I'm going to do a lot of reading just so I can stay informed without, overwhelming myself with unnecessary things. Just like focusing on what do I need to do right now. Well, anyway, let's talk about lockdown. Let's talk about coping mechanisms. What is happening to people who are at home? And for those of us who are still working in an office, or for those of us who still have jobs, we are mostly working from home. And it's pretty crazy for me to think that before all this happened, the thought of just telecommuting or teleworking or just working from home in general seems so foreign for businesses, because I don't know why they think it's so disadvantageous until we're forced to do it. Now that everybody's working from home, only now and only then are people realizing that people are more productive, businesses save a lot of operational costs. Now, I'm sure it's not all happy and all beneficial, but it's not an impossible thing to do, especially if you're doing a desk job and everything can be digitized now. And there's only a selected number of professions that require face-to-face interaction, which is one of the worst hit industries, because we're talking about like the service sector, like traveling, leisure, what else is there, like services, like on top of mine, I'm thinking of things like salons, parlors, spas, or anything that requires people to be in front of each other, like I guess hospitals, the frontliners, like dealing with patients and all that. But apart from that, like the usual corporate job, or that our 9 to 5 that allows you to clock in and out of the office, it's all possible. Technology is evolving, but for some reason there are just some places or some companies that are really slow to adapt, or they're really reluctant on adopting new technologies. I don't know why. Are they scared of new things? Do they think it's expensive? Or is it because it's something new to their eyes, so they're not used to it? And it's pretty crazy, I'm pretty glad that where I work, everyone is very forward. They all have like open minds about how we can improve our operations. And even before this whole pandemic thing happened, we've been practicing occasional or like rotational work from home. Like when there's natural disasters, since the Philippines is so prone to like typhoons. And then this year, the Taal volcano erupted. Then we even had some earthquakes, and it was possible. It was easy for our office to adapt to just work from home. Keep safe, like don't go outside. You just need a decent internet connection. Just be communicative and just do your work. Now, how are people just coping with all of this? I really can't speak for everybody, but I guess I can just speak from what I've observed and what I've experienced personally. And it's how we're all so drowned deep into social media. How we're all just endlessly engaging, scrolling, and interacting. And wait, let me just cough real quick. Sorry about that. And while it's all good, I guess, because we want to stay in touch, I guess it's only human that we long for interaction with other people. But how much is enough? In the first few months of being in quarantine, I find myself on that, that, I guess, sudden high for just posting, what is everyday life like, being at home. But then again, as an introvert, it's not really new for me, but I'm gonna talk about my introversion at a separate episode because I could just talk about that. But the thing is, it wasn't a healthy coping mechanism for me, and I found eventually that it was so overbearing, the need to just know what's going on in everyone's life since you don't see them anymore. And I found myself just forgetting to live my own life and the pursuit of keeping up with others. So, I mean, not to be too dramatic about it, all I did is just logged out and uninstalled from, all of my existing social media platforms. So, does that mean I don't care anymore about other people? No, not at all. But the thing is, right now, you can call me selfish or whatever, but I'm just gonna look out for myself. I want to live my own life. I want a life. Do I not have a life when I'm addicted to, social media? Probably. I have strong FOMO, fear of missing out, for those of you who might not be aware of the term. But I just, I have this constant fear of being left out or like being unaware. But now that I'm really deep into just not being engaged with everyone, I find so much peace in just not knowing anything. It feels good in the sense that when you don't know anything, then that gives you reason or purpose to reconnect with someone because you'd have something to talk about. As opposed to like, since you already know everything on social media, then there's no sense in interacting with them, asking how they're doing when you already see their posts. It's just, and I think that's the biggest social impact that this whole like pandemic has, is like, at least for my perspective, is that we're all a little bit too informed. Like we're a little bit, over consuming what's going on, and that's just not doing it for me. It's not, I don't like it. It's not good for my mental health. Okay, is that so bad to feel or think? Yeah. Okay, I'm just like gonna breathe real quick. But yeah. I just want to talk about my other observations since we're on that topic of posting on social media. When I was on that trend of just being active on social media 24/7, all I ever did was just take pictures of sunsets and sunrises. Like, can we talk about the environmental impact of this pandemic and how beautiful the world became when this pandemic began? Like the skies were just clear. You could see vistas that you didn't know existed just because air pollution was just at an all-time low because there were no cars driving outside. There was like no reason, to cause like traffic jam because people were at home. And then like I saw like photos on trending on social media, like rivers were clearing up. You could see the bottom of the water, and then animals were just from the wild were just they're just coming back, like into the habitat into the habitat. I'm just like, wow, like nature is just flourishing since the use of unnecessary fossil fuels were just greatly reduced. And I don't know if there's like a lot of things to talk about that, but that is one of like the biggest positive change I've seen, which is, the improvement, I guess, in the air quality where I'm from. But then again, if we're going to talk about economic impacts, like one of the biggest change is e-commerce. So yeah, see what I did there? Another C word, change. We are now on this consuming spree of just ordering everything online. Now, I don't know if anyone else is guilty of this. I'm glad if you're not, because you live a very intentional and mindful life. And as somebody who tries to practice the minimalist lifestyle, I feel so guilty of being trapped by consumerism because I've been buying a lot of things during this lockdown. I mean, even before, I've been occasionally buying things online, but then I never really resorted to purchasing anything until I was outside so I could buy it in store. But now that e-commerce has become more and more relevant, I just find myself adding things to cart, checking out, paying online. It's just, since everything is just so convenient, you just have this instant gratification of you just getting things that you want at, like a few clicks of a button, and it really sucks. Like, it's like being on drugs, but the drug is consumerism. Like, I understand the satisfaction of having new stuff can bring to you because you're like, hey, new things, new opportunities, or just new. But once that newness eventually wears out, that's where all the guilt comes creeping in, where, oh my gosh, I just spent thousands on this thing that I know I'm not gonna use for a long time, on this thing that I know will eventually break, or this is just a phase. Like at this point, like I'm even looking at my microphone and I'm just thinking that, is this microphone a waste of money for me? Because right now I'm creating podcasts. Now, I have zero expectations of this podcast taking off, but I'm just really happy to have like a platform where I can vent, I can, release my creative juices, but it's not an essential for me. I could have stuck, or I could have just, continued using my earphones. The quality wasn't that bad, at least not for me. And I'm not really expecting anybody to be commenting on how poor my audio quality is, except for my trailer. That was a really horrible quality output, but besides the point. But shucks. Like at this point, I just want to uninstall everything from my life that doesn't feel productive, doesn't feel creative, or it just doesn't serve a higher purpose for me. I don't know. I kind of find it hard to put into words, but that was a really strong impact for me. And like while we're improving our air quality, since e-commerce is on the rise, not everybody is into zero waste packaging. And imagine ordering from different stores, ordering multiple times, even if you order in bulk, you're still consuming plastic, you're consuming packaging, tape, plastic covers, bubble wrap. Like, bruh, our trash bin is full of just packaging from online orders, deliveries. Yikes. Is all I can say to that. I just Like, yes, the air quality is much better, but where is all this plastic gonna go after you throw it away, right? Bro. Okay. I'm just gonna move on from that topic because, well, talking about zero waste and talking about like a simple lifestyle is for our Simple Saturdays episode. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna talk about this again in depth or if I'm gonna deal with something else, but we're just here to talk about the different C words, man. So after that, talking about consumerism and things like, coping mechanisms, I feel like we've just developed an entirely new world culture. Another C word. Hey. And it's where, I don't know, it's like the barriers between our differences as people are just getting thinner, especially because of the internet. People can get more informed, people can get access to things they didn't have access to before. It's like you can experience a completely different culture even if you don't visit their country or go to that place. And I think that's pretty cool. But then at the same time, we're kind of losing diversity since a lot of the experiences that we have in life have to do with what we're doing outside. So I guess we're talking about, how does daily life look like when we're not at home? Because not everyone is built for home life or not. It's not normal, or it wasn't normal to always be at home. And there's just this new thing where everybody calls it the new normal. What it's like now, how it's so different from before. Like, some people are just, they wouldn't really think about washing their hands, but today everybody washes their hands at least 3 or more. Every time they touch something, they need to sanitize, they need to wash their hands with soap, or they feel the need to take a bath, or just people are taking a lot of extra precautions on cleanliness, which is a good thing. But like I said, too much isn't really good either. So we have just started this whole hygienic and cleanliness culture of just where people are more accustomed to wearing masks and face shields now, and like temperature checks are normal. People are writing or filling out surveys and questionnaires for contact tracing, and there's a lot of I guess daily life that has been impacted, such as, I mean, it's not that big, but also I guess we can talk about it. And I guess as somebody who's interested in this industry, it's about television and film. Like, it's because of the precautions that we have to take, there's a lot of production that has to stop. So a lot of people from this who work in this industry are losing their jobs, or they have to resort to other means of creating new movies, creating new shows. That's just really impacted the future of what media could look like. Because since we're trying to contain this virus and we don't want to spread it, people have to, they have to constantly wear precautions, they have to wear masks, face shields, but you can't really have a show where everybody wears masks and face shields, or is that a good show idea? But the thing is, it's changing how it's gonna look like from now on. People can have these imaginative stories that they write down on books, on screenplays, or I don't know. Can you just imagine what I'm trying to say? It's just not the same anymore. People have been producing content online related movies and just TV shows, and that's good for a while. But what does it look like in the future? The diversity of movie genres. It's what is happening to pop culture? Is everybody just gonna be available digitally forever? You don't get to have in-person concerts anymore? Is everything gonna be a drive-in? Is it gonna be digital? The other time at work, we were talking about sports, and then how they filled up an entire stadium of just screens of people who purchased to watch the game when you could watch it for free online. It is just so baffling to me. And like, how are people playing sports nowadays? Especially contact sports like basketball or I don't know, football or soccer. Everybody has to wear masks, face shields, or do they not care? They just play accordingly. How do they keep clean? Because people are gonna be sweating, bodily fluids, saliva, or like okay, it's pretty gross, but you catch my drift. Like, bruh, like the world is like just so different now, and it's a little bit terrifying to imagine because it's like it's a very foreign concept. For me, I'm used to being at home, but I do appreciate people who have a knack for the outdoors and the adventurous life. So like seeing them, having to it's like the reverse Uno card where when introverts have to go outside, you feel bad for them because extroverts know all introverts want to do is, stay home and recharge. But now it's the other way around where introverts probably feel bad for extroverts. Like, these people need their social energies by, socializing and going out and just, bro, are these extroverts okay? Please check on your extrovert friends. Okay, somebody is lighting up garbage. I don't know how you say that in English, but the smoke is coming inside my room and I'm finding it hard to breathe and even speak. But we're already beyond halfway of this episode anyway. But yeah, pop culture is pretty crazy. And another pattern that I've been noticing lately, and it's not just because of the pandemic, but there's a lot of people dying. Even before, people have already been dying. Dying is not a new concept for humans, but it's just that, especially with celebrity deaths and how people can only grieve digitally and online now, the amount of content related to grief has just been so rampant. Okay, I don't know if I used the correct adjective for that, but there has been many, and it's pretty sad, of course. But like, I don't know how people process grief. We all have our own ways, right? But it's just pretty sad because one after the other, like people of higher profiles are just dying, along with regular people. And apart from our current state of the world, the usual catastrophe didn't stop for anything. It's not like natural disasters stop because there's a pandemic. It's not like there's still storms going on. This country still experiences drought, power outages, famines, even earthquakes. I am absolutely terrified of nature-related disasters. Oh, okay, natural disasters. Why did I have to say it so long? But it's just really sad and really terrifying as somebody who believes in the apocalypse. Like I said, as someone from a Christian background, I believe in an apocalypse or the end of the world or judgment day, as some people would call it. And it's just really sad and really scary to see all of these signs, because the end is at hand. I don't want to sound too, what do you call, extreme about this, but it's very scary that we're at a verge of the end. And it's like people of different faiths, they're taking this opportunity as well to propagate their beliefs, that because we want what's best for people, or like we want to share with them the good news, like we want them to be saved, we want them to be in a good place, or as people who believe in the afterlife, we want them all to go to heaven, we don't want people to go to hell. I'm kind of like laughing but also like tearing up a bit because I'm getting like slightly emotional about this, but it's crazy. That's the biggest C word I can just say. Everything is just crazy. I I hate this. I I hate this with a burning passion. I don't know if we're ever gonna go back to the way things were before. This is definitely a new normal, and I don't know what the future holds. I don't know anything. I'm just blabbering on about how I don't know anything. And it's a little bit difficult to process that all we have is right now. All we have is today. What are people looking forward to? I have no idea, but are we ever going to be able to travel again? Are we going to see our family again? Is it going to be okay to hang out in public again? Is it okay to touch, to make physical contact? Like, I just have all these existential questions for myself, and I'm getting a little bit emotional about it because my biggest love language is quality time and physical touch when it comes to giving. And it's hard for me because as much as I want to spend quality time with people, I'm somebody who prefers quality time in person. And with all these social distancing protocols, I just have to adjust and resort to, talking to them, messaging them, talking to them on the phone, which is all good for me too. But it's just something different to see their presence, their consciousness, they're there. I could tell everybody right now that I care about them. I could tell everyone right now that, they matter to me. And that's, words of affirmation, right? Acts of service, or, giving them gifts, other love languages. But it's just so different when you can give someone your time, because I think time is the most expensive currency there is in existence. Like, there's no money, no amount of money in the world that can give you back time that you've already spent. Probably you can use money to save time, but once time is spent, that's it. Like right now, I'm using this time to record a podcast, but I'm spending it on this when I could be spending it on something else that matters to me. But here I am. This is what I'm investing on. It's quite baffling, really. I'm just making a bunch of crying noises now because I'm finding it really hard to think. Yikes. Okay, I have to pause for a moment because I really need to cough, and bruh, it's crazy. I'm a naturally emotional person. So I don't know how dramatic this episode about the C word can get. But since we're on the topic of, health, I want to talk about my current health situation, because I don't really think I've discussed this in much detail before, and this is just based on my previous medical checkups. But I don't want it to be the case, but I think I might be at risk of what's going on right now. Yeah, what's going on right now, because I really don't want to say that word again, that C word. But I'm someone who's very prone to getting sick, and I hate getting sick because I don't really get sick a lot, but when I do, it's crazy. And for some reason, this entire thing being at home just made me even more prone to getting sick, because I rarely go outside. When I do go outside, it's usually because of something important that I need to do. And then when I go back home, I just feel sick all over. It's like a combination of feeling drained as an introvert and at the same time having my physique. I'm just gonna talk about a bunch of things that's going on with my body, physically and mentally, which makes me come to that conclusion that, yeah, I am not in great shape. to be existing in a pandemic like this. I mean, in general, for those of you who don't already know, I'm physically unfit. How do I say that? Because I'm fat. That's all there is to it. I'm overweight, probably obese. I have a very high BMI. It may not look it because some people, they tell me that I'm tall, it's proportional and stuff like that. But nah, bro, I'm not healthy. That's all there is to it. I need to eat better. I need to exercise, or I need to lose weight even. But besides that point, I have a lot of problems with myself in terms of health. And apparently, I have a lot of skin conditions, which makes me super sensitive. Now, I have an okay skin. Like, I have a combination sensitive skin. So that means I rarely get acne. I get pimples once in a while when I forget to wash my face. But other than that, I have pretty okay skin, except for like big pores. I have pretty big pores, which sucks because my other skin condition is hyperhidrosis, which means I sweat a lot, even though there's no reason to sweat. I just sweat everywhere. It sucks. It's like I have no friction over everything because I'm just so sweaty all the time. And what's even worse than that is I have this condition called cholinergic urticaria. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but that just literally translates to being allergic to your own sweat. And it's like the worst combination ever because I sweat a lot and I'm allergic to my own sweat. Like, why? Why is that happening? That's horrible. And like the worst thing that I developed over the years, because it wasn't like this before, but apparently I have photodermatitis, something similar to also keratosis pilaris. Okay, now I'm saying all these scientific words, but basically what I'm saying is I'm also allergic to strong light. So I'm talking about high temperatures and then like the sun, or like strong indoor lights even, or spotlights and all that. And I have this condition where I have like chicken bumps on my skin. So I have really ugly arms because it mostly manifests on my arms and legs, but mostly on my arms. So like while my face is just, nice and clear and just okay-ish, I have horrible skin on other parts of my body. I also have eczema, which sucks. It's like I have really dry skin and I'm sweaty. It's like, okay, all this information about my body is just really gross to probably listen back to, but yeah, that's what's going on, and I hate it because that kind of gives me this whole vampire syndrome thing where I can't be outside, and I really hate the taste of garlic, and I love to wear black. It's just like, all those stereotypes on what a vampire is like, and I have really pale skin. Because what I'm gonna talk about next is my anemia. I have very low red blood cell count and low iron count. So I'm also hypoglycemic, which means I have low blood sugar. And I also have hypotension, which means I have low blood pressure. And I have hyperchloremia, which means I probably have a lot of salt in my body, even though I don't eat salt. I hate salty food. Like, I hate salt. And it's kind of funny because I have a history of fainting. I faint too easily because of my anemia or because of my low blood pressure, and I'm terrified of needles. Most of the time that I faint is under strong stress, under like high levels of stress, and when there's a needle involved somewhere. And I'm talking about things like when I'm getting a vaccine or if I'm getting a blood test. I faint 9 out of 10 times. I only remember there's this one time I managed to not faint, but that's like out of like sheer will of just trying not to faint. Like, I really tried my best not to faint, but most of the time I always faint when there's a needle or injection involved. And it's really funny because whenever I wake up from passing out, it's usually the laughter of the doctor, or if I'm with my mom or my sibling, they're just gonna be laughing at me because when I faint, I look like I got electrocuted. And then I do this whole like not dance, of course, because what does a person look like when they get electrocuted, right? So there's like that um there's that thing for you to imagine on how I look like. I I'm laughing because I mean the only thing that I remember when I faint is that my brain feels cold, and then my eyesight just blacks out, and then the next thing I remember is just I'm waking up while lying down. And speaking of fainting, I'm moving on to my mental health. Apparently, fainting has been my coping mechanism to stress, because there have only been a few times in my life when I've been put under immense amount of stress, and during those times I have fainted. I don't know whether it's on purpose and unintentional, if it's a pretentious faint, but I have been unconscious during those times out of, I guess, fatigue, or just out of shutting down because I can't deal with anything. Or is it to make people feel guilty that they've put me in such a situation, or I just hate what's going on and I just want to faint? I don't know, but I've fainted a lot of times. I have yet to see a psychiatrist or a professional to talk about my mental health with, just because I don't have access to healthcare that allows me to see somebody at an affordable rate. I am an entry level professional. I'm saving money for future investments in my future. I mean, mental health is somewhere there, but right now I just can't afford that. So it really sucks. I've got my diagnosis. Like, I've got my clinical diagnosis on what's going on with my mental health, but that's it. There's no treatment. There's no instructions on what to do. It's just getting on with it. I'd probably talk about this in another episode, but I just thought it's important to discuss it here, given that we're talking about the C word, on how it impacts someone like me. So I have clinical anxiety. I have depression. I have a history of anorexia. And I don't know, this doesn't really count as like a mental illness, but I kind of write this down because I do experience it a lot. But I get hallucinations and I lucid dream. So what does this all mean when I get sick? When I get sick, really sick, I tend to have hallucinations or vivid dreams about all the things I hate and absolutely terrified of. I'm saving it for another episode on what my phobias are, but it's just horrible for me because when I'm sick, I don't eat. And then my depressive episode gets a lot worse because I can't sleep, so I wallow in my emotions. And then when I have anxiety, to top it all off, it's just horrible because I don't know how to interact. I don't know how to deal with things. I either freeze or I panic. It's really horrible. And it puts me at such a disadvantage. Like, I'm not experiencing anything horrible. I don't have like a deadly disease. I don't have like a contagious illness or whatever. But these small factors, at least for me, they tend to add up and just make things a little harder for me to cope with everything that's going on right now. I'm just gonna remove that list right now because I don't want to see it. It's not doing anything for me. I kind of hate it that it's like that. And I guess a good way to like just close this off is that we're all just trying to get through the day, and we're all going through this. Like, I don't think anybody's an exception. which kind of sucks because I hope there are people who are still living a normal life out there. They're all safe and healthy. So I just hope everyone is in a good place, physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, intellectually, everything. And that you can all find your purpose on what makes life worth living for you. Just so I is it bad to wish everybody like a good fortune, or like for good things to happen to them? I just yeah. Okay, I guess I'm running out of things to say, but I just wish for everybody to take this episode as just something casual. Don't take it too seriously because, like I said earlier, I'm not fully informed or educated in all of the topics that I discussed here. But I just really think it's important that we talk about the elephant in the room, which is what everybody or most of people are going through right now. And that's the C word. I guess. Okay, no more. That's my cue. I have reached the end of my thinking capacity. I'm going to save all other topics for our upcoming episodes because I have so much fun stuff that it's not too I feel drained right now. It was a little bit too much for me to talk about because I prefer to talk about things that make me light up or make me feel hyper or enthusiastic to talk about, and this wasn't one of those. But I just think this is worth addressing. It kind of marks history, since if this is going to be posted online, it's going to be part of the internet archive. Okay, let's go with our outro, I guess. Let's insert generic outro. I'm not active on social media, and more of a lurker myself. I'm actually inactive on social media, so this kind of doesn't apply, but whatever. Hey, I got an Instagram page if you want to stay connected or not. It's up to you, really. I'll start using the hashtag @Ceterox on all my posts for all that SEO and low-key marketing jazz. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel for official uploads, or stay tuned for the distributed versions on mainstream platforms of your choice. That means I have an Anchor profile, so that they help me distribute to all the podcasting platforms out there. Pretty cool. Anyway, for those who can't deal with hour-long episodes, you can check out the time cards and skip to the part you like, or subscribe to our second channel to be updated for highlights. I still haven't really gotten around to creating a second channel for highlights because right now I'm pretty good with the timestamps because people can just, click on the time on what they feel like listening to. So, yeah. Lastly, you can check out our blogger page where I try my best to transcribe everything I just said or share show notes and maybe create other content I won't necessarily discuss in this podcast. Let me know your thoughts and takeaways. In the meantime, till next time. Bye.